And we're coming back with the breaking news of what's happening in the top court with regard to the pleas against the farmers, which the Supreme Court is hearing at this point in time. Now that hearing is going on. It is underway right now. The Chief Justice of India has expressed immense disappointment at the way the centre has handled the entire situation. And the Supreme Court has said that this is a very delicate situation and has asked why the laws cannot be put on hold. Meenakshi is back with us. Meenakshi, please take us through what's been happening so far.
Well, Abhi, we have a very important big news update coming in from the Supreme Court. As we speak, like you rightly mentioned, the matter is underway. The Chief Justice of India asking the government whether the government is ready to stop the implementation of the laws or whether the Supreme Court should do it. That's a very, very important development coming in as the matter is still ongoing. We have brought to our viewers several other aspects about the Supreme Court expressing its displeasure at the manner in which the situation has been handled by the government. But the big news we are getting to our viewers at this moment, which is transpiring, is the Chief Justice of India to the Government of India telling the government, or rather asking the government, and I quote, tell us if you're ready to keep the law in abeyance, tell us if you will do it or we will do it. So that's a very terse warning coming in from the Supreme Court to the government. The Chief Justice of India also going on to opine and comment on me, and I quote, the situation is worsening. Farmers are committing suicide. They're out in the cold. Why are the farmers why are the elderly and the children are being kept in the cold, unquote. So that is another concern that the Chief Justice of India has just expressed as we speak. But the big takeaway at this point in time of me is the Supreme Court, led by the Chief Justice of India, asking the government whether the government is ready to stop the implementation of the laws or whether the Supreme Court should intervene and do it.
Yes, absolutely, Meenakshi. And last time round, when the top court had asked this question, the centre categorically came back and said there is no question of putting the laws on hold at this point in time. But this time round, it is not just, a small point being made by the top court. Categorically, Chief Justice is asking directly why the laws cannot be put on hold. So, of course, it will also be interesting now to see how the centre responds to this.
Well, absolutely, Avni. This is an ongoing matter that we are bringing to our viewers. Remember, this is happening in real time, that we are getting to our viewers, the back and forth, the exchanges between the bench and the Government of India. And the latest, like you rightly mentioned, has been as to how the Supreme Court is again questioning the government whether it will mull over the prospect of putting the contentious farm laws on hold for now while a committee is set up to assess the situation and the grievances of the farmers. Alongside the Chief Justice of India also just going on to observe, and I quote, as to how protests can be carried on. The Supreme Court does not want to be seen as stifling the protest, but we want to ask do farmers want to continue to protest there itself, or can you move a bit so that common people are not inconvenienced? That's another concern coming in from the Supreme Court. We are bringing to our viewers real-time updates as it is transpiring in the virtual court proceedings. Supreme Court now asking the farmers whether they want to continue the protest in that particular site or whether they will consider shifting the venue a bit so that others are not inconvenienced.
Yes, absolutely, Meenakshi. Thanks for getting us those details. Let you go for the time being so that you can get us more updates as to what's happening. But those are some important points the Supreme Court is raising here. And just to quote very categorically, top court is asking the centre, are you ready to keep the law in abeyance? Will you put the laws on hold or should we? This very strong words coming in from the Supreme Court, once again reiterating the need for a committee to be formed to end the deadlock and perhaps putting the laws on hold as the solution for the time being until this issue is entirely resolved. Those are the details coming in at this point in time. Supreme Court expressing disappointment about the way the centre has dealt with this entire situation. And once again asking why the laws cannot be put on hold. In fact, going a step further this time and asking, will you put the laws on hold or should we? Supreme Court also saying that they don't want to stifle the farmers' protest, but at the same time, the situation is worsening. Some farmers have in fact died by suicide. They've lost their lives and it's extremely cold. Remember the weather conditions at this point in time, rain, cold. Farmers are protesting in that manner. And those, of course, are the points that the top court is really saying. And that's the point really the Supreme Court is also trying to make at this point in time. Once again, reiterating the need to form a committee to end the entire deadlock as well. And also saying that they're checking the possibility of a negotiated solution. It is going to be interesting to see how the centre responds to all of this, because last time round the centre had categorically said that there's no question of putting the laws on hold and the laws cannot be put on hold. That is what the centre had said last time. We'll now, of course, have to wait and see how this entire hearing does proceed going forward. The hearing is underway at this point in time. This is a plea that the Supreme Court is hearing over removal of farmers from the borders, citing the concerns over the spread of the coronavirus. But this is now being questioned by the top court in several ways, in fact, to the centre, questioning whether or not they're ready to keep the laws in abeyance and whether they will put the laws on hold, or should we, is what the top court is telling the centre. Those are the details coming in at this point in time. We're getting you all of those details as they're happening in the hearing at the moment. We'll, of course, keep going back to Meenakshi, but this is what the Supreme Court is saying, citing disappointment at the way the entire farmers' protest issue has been handled, and also questioning what are the kind of negotiations that are happening, and also reiterating the need that the deadlock needs to end. Perhaps a committee does need to be formed for that. Also pointing out that the farmers' protest is not something that can be stifled, and the Supreme Court doesn't want to stifle the farmers' protest, is what they're saying at this point in time. In fact, the top court is also now telling farmers, more updates coming in, that continue the protest, but whether or not the venue can be shifted, because common people shouldn't be inconvenienced. This is what the Supreme Court is now telling the farmers, that the protests can continue, but shift the venue because others shouldn't be inconvenienced. Remember, the farmers' protest is happening at the borders of Delhi, and that has been affecting the movement of people through those borders and putting a lot of others at inconvenience at this point in time. We'll keep getting you those details from the hearing, but for now, we'll slip into a quick break and come back. And we're coming back with the breaking news of the ongoings in the top court at this point in time. The Supreme Court hearing a plea against the farmers' stir, a plea that has asked for removal of the farmers from the protest site at the Delhi borders. But the top court making some extremely strong points here, questioning why the centre cannot put the laws on hold at this point in time, asking what are the kind of negotiations that are actually going on, and citing extreme disappointment at the way the centre has handled this entire situation. In fact, the Supreme Court also telling the farmers that we don't want to stifle the protest, but whether or not the venue can be shifted. This is what the Supreme Court telling the farmers, and also telling the farmers that normal people cannot be inconvenienced, and that is the reason why it is suggesting to sort of shift the venue of the protests at this point in time. But the main takeaways here and the important highlights of what's happened so far is the top court taking a very strong stand and asking why not the laws be put in abeyance for now and put on hold until the issue is sorted out, until a committee is formed and the negotiations actually take place. Meenakshi joining us for more details. Meenakshi, extremely strong stand being taken by the top court here, and last time it was just a small mention the top court made of putting the laws on hold, but this time it has now put that a direct question to the centre, saying, will you put the laws on hold or should we?
Absolutely, I mean, very, very important hearing, and for the first time, we are seeing the Supreme Court adopt this really staunch stand, where the court, as we speak, has been coming down heavily on the central government over the farm laws. The Supreme Court is questioning the consultative process that the government purportedly engaged in prior to the implementation of these said laws. The Supreme Court is also questioning the consultation process after the agitation by the farmers started, and the Supreme Court is questioning also the insistence to implement this law even in the face of such protests. So that's the big breaking we are getting to our viewers at this point. The Supreme Court coming down heavily on the central government, and like you rightly mentioned, just a short while back, the Supreme Court questioning the government, telling the government in no uncertain terms that will you pull out or withdraw rather, or put in abeyance the implementation of the farm laws, or should we? Remember, like you rightly mentioned, this was a proposition that the Supreme Court had floated prior to the winter vacation. That time, the government had shot down this proposition, saying that there is no question of staying the implementation of the farm laws because the process of consultation and negotiation with the farmers is still underway. That was well before the Supreme Court had headed into its winter break. Clearly, subsequent to the court convening after the winter break, the situation on ground, Avni, has not changed a bit, despite several talks that the government has had with the farmers and their representatives. Remember, the logjam still continues, and that is why the Supreme Court is concerned and worried. And this time around, posing a completely tough question to the government of India, saying that will you withdraw this law or put it in abeyance, or shall we? So it is a very high-stake matter. That is the reason we are having the attorney, the solicitor, all present in court representing the government's interests. But clearly, before the Supreme Court today, the government is at the receiving end.
Yes, absolutely, Meenakshi. On one hand, the Supreme Court taking a strong stand as far as the centre is concerned, but it has also asked the farmers whether or not the venue itself can be shifted, because let's remember that the protests are happening at the borders, and this has been causing a lot of inconvenience for the past over a month now for a lot of people. So Supreme Court saying, why not shift the venue to avoid that inconvenience?
Absolutely. The Chief Justice of India of the opinion that protests can be carried on. The Chief Justice also very particular about the fact that the Supreme Court does not want to be seen to be stifling the protests, but also, like you rightly mentioned, asking the farmers that do they wish to continue there itself, or whether it's possible for them to move a bit so that the other common people are not inconvenienced. So that's another area which is being discussed or spoken about as we speak, because again, we underline for our viewers, this is an ongoing matter where we are bringing to our viewers minute-by-minute update as is transpiring in the virtual proceedings. And yes, the several areas that the Supreme Court has touched upon today. One, the Supreme Court has expressed sharp displeasure at the manner in which this whole consultation between the government and the farmers has been conducted or handled. The Supreme Court is questioning the government why the implementation of these farm laws cannot be put on hold till a committee really assesses the grievances of the farmers. And thirdly, like you rightly mentioned, the Supreme Court is also asking the farmers whether they can consider moving the protest to a different venue so that other people are not inconvenienced. But clearly not a very good day in court over farm laws for the government of India.
Yes, absolutely, Meenakshi. Extremely important points here, extremely important hearing, like you mentioned. Just one more point, Meenakshi, as far as the committee is concerned, Top Court has also spoken about this particular committee. If you can take us through what we know and what has the court spoken about as far as the committee is concerned.
Well, lovely. We will not prejudge what committee it will be, what it will do, because that will be the outcome that we will await for the Supreme Court to pass orders on. What we can confirm to our viewers at this juncture is this, that the committee will not be for now looking into vacating the farmers. We have already showcased the news to our viewers that the CJI has said that he does not want to be seen to be stifling the protests in any manner. So whichever committee the Supreme Court forms will go on to assess the larger grievances of the farmers pertaining to the farm laws. What is the sticky point that the farmers have pertaining to the farm laws that they are agitating? How best can that be addressed? Those are the issues that the committee will eventually go on to look at. That committee constitution has not yet happened, and therefore we will not prejudge what the Supreme Court will do or not do with the setting up of the committee. But clearly there's an indication that the committee will be set up, which will not be entrusted with the task of moving or vacating the farmers, because the Chief Justice of India just a few moments back has already underlined that the Supreme Court does not want to be seen to be stifling the protests in any way. Abhi.
Yes, absolutely, Meenakshi. Those are the points, of course, that is going on in the Top Court in the hearing right now, and we're of course getting you all of those details. Meenakshi is getting us minute-by-minute details of what's happening in the Top Court, who's saying what. And right now, of course, the main takeaways is what the Supreme Court has said as far as the farm laws itself are concerned, and questioning the centre on why the laws cannot be put into abeyance for the time being until the issue is resolved. And on the other hand, has also asked whether or not the farmers can shift the venue, also making it aptly clear that they don't want to stifle the protests in any way. The Supreme Court does not want to stifle the farmer protests, but asking why the venue cannot be moved to another place, because the current venue where they are at the Delhi borders is inconveniencing people, and that is not something that should be allowed to continue. And of course, let me in fact go back to Meenakshi. Meenakshi, just for our viewers who have just joined in, if you can recap for us some of the big highlights of what the top court has said so far. All right, we'll just get back to Meenakshi as soon as she has more details for us. But for the time being, those are some of the big takeaways of what's happening so far. Supreme Court saying that we want to ensure that there is no violence or bloodbath of any kind. Also saying that they don't want to stifle the protest, but asking the farmers whether the venue can be shifted, because the current venue is where the protests are being held is inconveniencing people. That is on one hand to the farmers and to the centre. The top court taking a very strong stand, asking, will the centre put the laws on hold or should the top court? That is the categorical question the Supreme Court is asking the centre, saying that why have the laws not been put on hold, and questioning why can't the laws in fact be put on hold, also expressing immense disappointment at the way the entire situation has been handled. The farmers' protest situation has been handled by the centre.